And you're trying to give the young people something that will help them, yet you don't know exactly what it ought to be.
Welcome to the Teach Thought Podcast. Terry, introduce yourself.
My name is Terry Ike. I'm a former classroom teacher and now director at Teach Thought, which means I do a lot of different things very badly.
And I'm Drew Perkins. I'm the Director of Professional Development here at Teach Thought, and hopefully that means I do a lot of different things really well.
And together we're hosting a podcast, which hopefully makes Teach Thought more accessible to you in more places, right, Drew?
Well, hopefully, yeah, but mostly it's just me hosting it because you just add episodes every so often, right?
Well, you know, I've got things to do. Remember, I'm director.
That's true. As always, thanks for tuning into the podcast. My name is Drew Perkins. I am the Director of Professional Development here at Teach Thought. And if you are interested in Teach Thought Professional Development coming to your school, you can find us on the web at wegrowteachers.com. As a reminder as well, for those of you listening in a timely fashion, we are excited to host our inaugural Teach Thought PBL #Grow17 event here in our hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. Regular registration has ended for the event, which is July 17th through 19th, but there is late registration and a few spots still available. We'd love to have you. The late registration is only $50 more than regular registration, so not a huge penalty, but again, we have a few spots left, and we would love to have you join us as you think about and learn about how to increase the quality of teaching and learning and deepen learning through students doing projects. In today's podcast, I spoke with Meredith Allen, who is an ambassador for the web app called Soundtrap, and that is a collaborative tool for the modern classroom, or so they say on their website, but it is a way to share audio files and collaborate. So we spoke about the app as well as other ways to get students collaborating and communicating both inside of a classroom but outside of those walls of a classroom, as well as how her sort of journey towards an entrepreneurial mindset, has really changed her outlook on teaching and learning. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the podcast. Today I have with me calling in from Iowa, I believe, Meredith Allen, who is an official ambassador for Soundtrap, and we're going to talk about Soundtrap and her journey to becoming an ambassador. But Meredith, I'm going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Drew. It's great to be here. It's a beautiful day, and I'm excited to talk with you.
Okay, so tell us how you came. You were a classroom teacher for, I think, 9 years, and how you came to Soundtrap and what that journey was all about.
So I was an instrumental music teacher, band director. I was pretty traditional as far as my teaching practices. I did a lot of what I remember from school for 9 years. During those years, I was also I served as a district technology integrationist and elementary computer teacher. For a couple of semesters, I did virtual reality facilitating, as well as, a study hall and prom sponsor and all those fun things that rural schools have with their few teachers. And it was a great 9 years. I loved teaching and the students, and I still live in the town that I taught in. It was very valuable. During those years, I also got my master's in Edtech, and that kind of sparked an interest to keep going and try the next challenge out. And a job came open it would have been 9 years in, and I thought, well, I'm going to try it would have been a technology consultant at a AEA, an area education agency, where we served about 42 different schools. And that's when my focus kind of shifted. Yep.
And as we were talking earlier, you said that you had the opportunity to sort of intersect and interact with a guy named Scott McCloud, who is now in Colorado, but was at the time in Iowa. And I know him just generally from Twitter, but I know of him is that he sort of pushes folks to, and I appreciate this because I think people say this about me, is that he pushes people to sort of stretch their thinking and think differently and challenges them in more conventional thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was one of the people that interviewed me for the position, and he was my boss. He would say, "No, I wasn't your boss," but he was my leader during that the next year. And I think he saw in me an energy to try something new, and I was ready to kind of break out of my shell a bit. And that summer, so I was hired, and then I had never been on Twitter. I wasn't a connected educator. I didn't know anything outside of really the band world. And he gave me the tools, the resources, and the support. The support was huge, in addition to just inspiration, to really challenge me and basically say, here you go, let's do this. And I just hit the ground running. The summer was an amazing summer of learning and catching up. I'll never be caught up, but one shouldn't be. So that was, I do give props to him and I had 3 others on my team that really stretched my thinking and were an amazing team to work with and transformed me.
Well, if you would talk a little bit, and we talked about this before, you and I, about the use of technology and how that can help you provide an audience and what that does for teaching and learning and student engagement.
Yes. So when you're a band director, the audience is easy. You have grandma and grandpa in the stands, and the students perform for their family. And so the buy-in for my kids' engagement was easy. They had a task or a goal, and they worked towards it because they knew so-and-so would be watching them, listening to them. It wasn't until I left that classroom and started thinking about applications in other classrooms, science, literacy, foreign language, that I thought not every teacher has that luxury of a student wanting to be there, signing up for their class, and B, having a built-in performance situation for their audience. And then I was like, wow, that's really, really important. And that played a huge role in the success of my classroom.
Right. And for us, when we work with teachers thinking about that audience, it provides or helps provide a point of leverage for some critical thinking, because it allows you to shift that conversation from, is this work good enough for an A or a B or the points or that kind of thing, to one that is more about the audience. And so how well does your work meet the needs of the audience, which means that you have to unpack and really think about who that audience is and what those needs are. So it's really a great opportunity to leverage critical thinking as opposed to just sort of compliance because the teacher said so, or this is what the rubric said to do, and those kinds of things. So what are the pieces that you see, I guess, when we think about Soundtrap, and let's kind of back up a little bit and tell us what Soundtrap is exactly, and then how you see it being used in the classroom in ways that maybe you hadn't thought of.
Yeah, so when I first found it, I was Googling, and that's the way that I came across it. This was a couple of years ago, and it's a digital audio workstation, so similar to GarageBand or Audacity or those types of programs, but it's collaborative. So it turns that audio workstation into a Google Doc for audio projects. So we like to say if GarageBand and Google Docs had a baby, it would be us. I think Tanya Avereth was the one that first said that. And so as far as I know, there's not a space in the world that does that yet. And when I saw that as an educator, I was like, I want that for my kids. That's huge, because not all kids learn with a visual. Some learn with their ears. Some learn better when they can hear it or when they can speak it and talk through it. And then they don't have to be worried about the red marks or the misspellings on their worksheet or their Google Doc. So I was all over the collaboration piece of having a digital space for projects, audio.
And so then you see it, I mean, I can see obvious connections with music and band, being a musician myself, but how do you see these audio files being used with like voice or other things that are non-music, non-band scenarios?
Yeah, so we 80, and I am not huge on statistics, but 80% of our users are non-music teachers, and it's rare in my workshops that I have music teachers. They're mostly like, the gamut really, anywhere from carpentry teachers to English teachers to Spanish teachers, and we've seen so many examples of different ways that they've used it, and I'll share some resources with you at the end, but because I've kind of compiled them. But one is foreign language lessons, where it's so important that students hear the way things are spoken, and as well as able to capture their progress. So I had one teacher have one project that was kind of an ongoing archive of that student's work throughout the semester, and so they could go back to the beginning of that project and listen to their fluency with their spoken voice. And then, even in math classrooms where students just record their thought process, and the teacher has all of these audio files they can listen to on their drive home of the kids explaining what they're thinking when they're working through the math problems.
And are you familiar with Voicethread?
Yes.
Yeah. So what are the similarities and differences from Voicethread, which I think is a pretty powerful application? Seems a little pricey to me. I haven't checked them lately, but it seemed like it was a little bit pricey.
Well, so Voicethread wouldn't have that collaboration feature. So I see, as far as I know, unless something's changed, so we could have, like I talked about, the student having a project, and then you don't want maybe just one student to do this. We want them to be collaborative. We want them to work together. And so they can invite others to be in on that same space. And there's commenting features on the one side. You can video chat within the platform.
Is that live video chat, synchronous, or
yep.
Okay?
Yep, two-way live. Hopefully working on more than two-way eventually. But so it's there's like a built-in Skype right there in the platform, and so one student could be in Iowa and another student could be in. Well, I take that back. One could be in Minnesota and one could be in Haiti. We have two schools right now collaborating between those two spaces. And they can see each other and then talk about what's happening in the platform on the left side and making edits and changes, and then have a text feature commenting down below. And it's so, there's so many different work ways that students could, really collaborate together.
That's interesting. I was doing some work with some teachers just this week, and they were asking about tools for online collaboration, like for global ed, international. And I, as you say that strikes me as the Soundtrap sounds like something that would be, obviously Minnesota and Haiti is international. So do you know more about that lesson or that unit of what they're working on, or other units?
Yeah, so Steve Asper is the contact there. He's a great guy. I met him at a GAF summit in Minnesota, and I'm not sure what the exact project was, but and there was also another layer to it where they are eventually going to go visit them because they've established this relationship with this school, which I think that plays into, if we make these connections with students now in schools, and even if they're just electronic or digital, later in life, they may have a desire to go visit or keep up with those students that they were able to meet digitally in 3rd, 5th, 7th grade, and collaborate with then, and then maybe have a relationship with later because they've been hooked. There's a connection there, which I think is so important in our society, is to make these connections globally, not just, down the hallway or, and that would be a first step. A baby step would be, collaborate with a class that's down the hallway. That's totally cool. But then eventually let's break those walls down. Let's expand these kids' horizons. Cause I know my kids, they live in small town Iowa, and if they didn't have these opportunities, then they wouldn't have these opportunities.
Right. And some of the other ways you've seen this used, some other lessons, units, classrooms that are interesting. Let's talk about some of those. Will you share some of those, please?
Yeah. So one would be Pingree School in New Jersey. They did a cross-curricular activity, which was awesome because they decided that, well, I think that a teacher there was walking into the hallway after he had just gotten out of his car, and he was listening to music in his car, and he thought, how great would it be if we had music continuing in the hallways? Like, he saw that would be kind of cool. So he approached the kids and pitched this project to them, and then got some other teachers on board and started a cross collaboration with these teachers. So the students, what they did is they found some music that they enjoyed. They researched it. They used Soundtrap to put in some clips of examples, and then between the clips, they explained what the listeners were listening to, and maybe pointed out some cool facts or things to listen for. And then they published it and played it throughout the hallways every morning. So, and these were fifth graders. So the first graders that were in the hallway as well could listen to these older kids' voices and maybe spark some conversation. And they haven't stopped that project as far as I know. Now, it was a one-time project to start with, and now it's continuous because they enjoy it and they see so many benefits. And I think that there was the language arts class, the technology class, and the music class all worked together on that project.
Cool. Very cool. Well, let's talk about your sort of journey from being a teacher and kind of dive into that a little bit more, because one of the things I think, and I've talked about this on podcasts previously, that I think teachers can really benefit from is a more of an entrepreneurial mindset, if you will. And that doesn't mean that you have to leave the classroom or that you have to start a business or anything like that. That those are certainly options, but can you or would you describe or share with us kind of that journey from being a band teacher that was in a classroom that had four walls or more, and because I'm thinking about the band rooms that I was in as a kid, and they had lots of walls, big rooms, but thinking about how you shifted from, and I don't want to say it was a poor situation or anything, but sort of a limited view to opening and expanding those horizons to seeing what was out there that you hadn't previously seen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, and I do tell on myself. I mean, my bands were very successful. The kids loved coming to band, but again, they signed up for me. They wanted to be there. I had the 20% of kids. I did not have 100% of the sample of our society. I was lucky in that regard, and I took that for granted at first because I just thought that's how it was. So yeah, for 9 years, very traditional. And then, as I had said, I had that job change, which also played a big role. But there was a moment, and I'll never forget it, where I was, how I felt. I think I even know what shirt I was wearing. But it was right after a concert. We had performed a piece called Junk Funk, which is, fun because you get to play in garbage cans and all that jazz. And we had played it at our spring concert. I had recorded it and uploaded it on YouTube for, like the grandmas and grandpas that couldn't make it to the concert. That was pretty typical for my housekeeping. And 3 days after that concert, I had gotten this email from Kevin Mixon, who was the composer of Junk Funk. And I didn't know this man, and I didn't know he even knew how to get a hold of me. I still don't know how he got a hold of me. But he had came across the video and said, and it was basically an attaboy email saying, hey, great job, band. You did fantastic. Keep on doing great things. Just keep on keeping on. And as a director, I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome. I enjoyed reading it. And then, but that moment I was speaking about before, that turning point that was when I told my high school band about this, or I read the email to them, and I watched them respond physically. Their shoulders went back, they got taller, their eyes popped open, and they got this face of like amazement. Like we touched somebody, we reached out to somebody and influenced somebody in New York City. And these are kids that maybe have never left the state of Iowa and might never leave the state of Iowa And that was one of those moments. I thought, I can never teach the way that I taught before again. I'm going to have to recreate this moment again because it was too special. It was something I couldn't ignore.
Yeah, it really does. I think the entrepreneurial mindset, to me, really starts to get you thinking about how it opens your eyes to all these different opportunities, and you're sort of more on the lookout for other ways to just get more out of the things that are around you. You start to see things and people and places, and I don't like to say it this way, but it sort of is like, how can I use that person, tool, place, resource as a resource to help sort of amplify and elevate the thinking and learning in my classroom in ways that you hadn't, perhaps as we start out as teachers and sort of that trajectory, we start to think, you start by, with sort of a limited view, and you're so focused on your content and the things that are right there in front of you, where down that road and your horizons expand, you start to see almost everything or so many more things as potential resources and tools to help with that learning.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's one of those things where I have to ask myself, I think there's like, is it, are you able to share it out into the world? Are you able to connect to other people? There's those questions. Is it passive or is it active? Is it collaborative? Can you use this cross curricular? Can you go beyond the test? And those are those questions that I have to ask myself now, whereas I wasn't before.
Yeah. What are the biggest challenges that you've seen in getting folks to engage with something like Soundtrap and other, you mentioned virtual reality and things like that? When I talk to a lot of teachers and I travel around a lot, and I haven't, selling them, and I hate to use the word sell, but to pitch them Soundtrap and what it does and what it offers it's not a challenge. Like I think everyone understands the magic that can happen. And the struggle comes with the support back home. And that's where I was as a teacher too. And it's hard for districts to, because we are a paid service with the COPA compliance and student privacy piece, we have to have that walled garden. But also the organization side, there's just more pieces to the paid. And that's probably where they're like, well, we don't have any money. And I my heart hurts for those schools. And I get it. But then there's also that shift of where we used to buy textbooks. That was like a given. Every school had textbooks because that was the resource for student learning. Well, that's shifted to software now. And so I think that's probably one challenge. The second challenge is just, the comfort level, letting go of feeling like you have to master the technology before you teach it to the kids, because I still don't know it to the best of its abilities. And I hope never to. And I want kids to teach me. I have two daughters, and my oldest, she practices piano on the platform, and she's showing me things that I was like, oh, cool. I wasn't really aware of that. And those are the moments that I love. But as a traditional teacher, you're not used to giving up the reins, so to speak. Right. And any tips for how you help teachers get past that or those challenges?
I think to give them some examples to, baby steps and just a very basic first recording. And then if I can get those teachers to try that, it's usually not a problem because they see the effect of the kids. And then the kids are coming to them saying, hey, are we doing Soundtrap today? Can we look what I did tonight or last night on my phone with Soundtrap? And I've heard over and over, like, the kids don't stop creating once they leave the classroom. And that is so cool. That's what we want. The platform works across all devices and it's cloud-based. So the kids can leave the classroom and keep creating throughout the hallway, on the bus, when they go home. And then they come back and they can share and be excited with the teacher again. And so if you can get it in the hands of the kids, that magic is like a medicine. It's just magical. Yeah.
And is it easy enough to use? Do you see it down to like early elementary, or is it better suited for sort of, I guess, the user interface and the ease of use by older kids?
So I use it with, I would say 6-year-olds and up. If you Google Soundtrap explained by a 6-year-old, you'll see a precious little girl. And she's like, it's easy. And it is. I mean, we do have some features that are very robust, but we kind of, the way that the platform's designed, we tend to kind of make those a little more hidden. So the people that don't want to, have preset audio editing and if you didn't want compressors, it's a couple more clicks away that the kids won't find necessarily. But to get that drag and drop loop going and start creating, they have a song, their own song that they've come up with in less than 30 seconds. And so, yeah, we've used it as low as 6-year-olds. My daughter was 4 when she first tried it, and with my help, she was successful. And then all the way through professional musicians. So we have, Soundtrap there's 2 platforms. There's like the personal use and then the education. And there's over a million users on the, the personal, and they're amazing. Like I get lost in the samples on our website, and I was like, wow, this is some really professional sounding recording.
Cool. And do you see, or I guess maybe, do you know where is Soundtrap? So let's back up a little bit here. There's a free, and then there's some paid versions, and you can find that information on the site, and we'll put links to it. But do you know where, what's in the future for Soundtrap? What are the things that are coming down the road that you might know of, or if you don't know of, any suggestions, or where do you hope it goes?
So yeah, the platform is really working on the education side. We want to make it easier to collaborate with other schools. So hopefully, my vision is that we have something similar like Skype for education, where you can kind of date other schools and find other schools easily. Right now, it's not as easy. So finding other schools, like maybe a 5th grade that's studying the same thing across the world. And so you could maybe click on a map. That's my own brainchild and idea. But someday, that will hopefully come to. And offering more, we've been working hard on our EDU blog, which has resources. So teachers, often they don't want to recreate the wheel, which I totally get, to get started. So we've started pushing out some lesson plans and some project ideas and user stories to kind of help get the wheels turning in the teachers' heads. And then just additions to the platform to make it better. The team is amazing. They're located in Stockholm, and I am so honored to be part of such a forward-thinking team. Like they make the simplest yet perfect changes and additions when they need to, and so they're constantly evolving and getting better.
Right, and so tell us a little bit more about the different ways that folks can I guess enter and use, because there's again a free and some paid versions, and some suggestions for how they can get started and what they links and things like that.
Yep, absolutely. So as I said before, there's two sides to Soundtrap. The first one's personal. So if you're just a musician and you're interested in recording, music, check out the personal. There's different tiers. So there's like a free and a premium and whatnot. And you just, with the free, you don't have as many options. You can only have like 5 projects at a time, and then not all the loops and instruments. And then we have an education side of things. And so what we were, and this is amazing, because this platform was designed by teachers, because we were being used by teachers without even knowing it. I think it was in 2015, Soundtrap got the Best Teaching and Learning Award from the Americans Association for Librarians. Mm-hmm. And Soundtrap was like, what? We don't know who you are and what you're doing. What are you doing? And so that's why it was built, because librarians were seeing the use for podcasting and language lessons and all that non-music specific classes use. And so from that point, we started building the platform for the education, which is integrated with Google Classroom or Schoology or Canvas. And I think there's more LMSs coming, but That's where you get all of our premium features. So all the bells and whistles of what we have to offer, you get it as a teacher. And that's paid. It's COPA compliant, FERPA compliant. So the student privacy, you have all of your permissions, subscriptions. You get to control that as a teacher. And so that's paid. And I think it starts out 50 seats, $249 for the year, which is like 95% off of what our premium features are for just a musician. So we try to make it as economical as possible for schools. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that.
And are those 50 users, those are just seats, so it's not static users. It could be a different 50 they can rotate through.
Yep, absolutely. So if you have one class first semester and you have a whole different class second semester, you can just toggle those seats to the new users.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, good deal. Ways that they can reach out to you or connect with you and that kind of thing if they have questions, or other links as well.
Yeah, so we're on Twitter, Soundtrap, at Soundtrap, and then mine is at Ms. Meredith Allen. And we are very open to suggestions. We love to hear what you've been doing, see pictures, or have audio files that we can showcase. We also have the teacher blog, which is edu blog.soundtrap.com. And then the soundtrap.com/edu is our website.
Good deal. And let me ask you one last question before we end here. And this is sort of out of left field compared to what we have been talking about, but I like to ask our guests, thinking about resources, tools, books, videos, things that you have seen, come across, digested in recent months or in the past year or something like that, that folks may not know about but should. Something that has really sort of sparked your interest and made you think differently. And it can't be Soundtrap.
No, yeah. So for music teachers, the equivalent of Soundtrap for notation, and you'll understand that if you're a music teacher, is check out flat.io or Noteflight. Love both of those. They're kind of like the notation version.
Flat.io?
Yep. Or noteflight.com.
Noteflight, okay.
Love both of those. And the NY Muse Lab is amazing. I just found yesterday, I tweeted it out, so it's on my Twitter feed. It was incredible. But what it was is you can put a YouTube video on your screen, and then you can improvise on your keyboard, just on your regular laptop keyboard. And they have it in the correct key to match up with these YouTube videos. And I just thought, wow, that's a really powerful piece for kids that are overwhelmed by the not being a classically trained musician, and they can just create. That one is the A. QWERTY on at the Muse Ed Lab in NYU, puts that on.
Okay, and we'll link to these things in the show notes on Teach Thought and We Grow Teachers. But jump on Meredith's Twitter feed if you want to find that maybe a little bit more quickly or easy. Any parting shots?
No, just thank you so much for having me, and just anytime that kids can create, let's get them creating.
Good deal. Meredith, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate your time and your thinking, and it was good to talk with you.
Thanks so much.
All right. That'll do it for today's podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and if you didn't hate it, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you're listening, and share it on social media wherever you feel comfortable. Speaking of social media, you can find us in all the normal places like Facebook, Twitter, Google+, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and please share us on those places as well. And don't forget about Teach Thought Professional Development. You can find us there at teachthought.com/PD.